You guys have some weird requests. Hello and welcome back to Slaggy Book Club. I'm Cameron, and in today's episode I'm going to be answering your oddly specific book recommendation requests. Now, you actually asked me these in response to me saying, hey, can you ask me some specific book requests? Because I love watching the videos where booktubers, book creators recommend people books based off of their weirdly specific criteria, right? I always find them so entertaining, and I always find it so interesting finding out sort of the way that people perceive particular books, right? I feel like when it's a really, really niche criteria, a really niche request, a person's justifications for inserting a particular book into that criteria is always really interesting to hear, because it just highlights how differently sometimes we interpret works of art in general, I suppose. I also just find them generally entertaining videos to watch, and so I thought I want to do one of those. So thank you to everybody who sent in their oddly specific requests. There are some very strange, very fun, very entertaining ones in here, and there were quite a few that I really struggled to think of anything, and so I haven't answered all of them, but I have tried to answer as many as possible. Let's jump in. The first oddly specific request came from somebody who wants a book for when I have to leave my dream city apartment because the landlord is selling it. Oh, there were two books that came to mind for this prompt, and the first one is Colony by Annika Norlin. This is a story about a woman who chooses, I will say, she's not forced out of the city. She chooses to leave, although she starts suffering from burnout, which I assume she didn't choose to suffer from. So, due to external circumstances, she had to leave the city. She goes and camps out in the woods to escape and stumbles upon a group of people across the river who are behaving quite interestingly, and she becomes sort of obsessed with them, and we get to know them. And it is a musing on city life, on modern life, on what leads people to want to escape that. And I suppose it questions what we prioritize and what really matters. And I feel like it doesn't obviously directly relate to this situation of having to leave your dream apartment in the city, but it might make you think about what's really important to you, and it might, help you to reframe how you think about losing your dream apartment in the scheme of life. Another one that came to my mind that sort of reckons with the same ideas about modern city living and whether or not the appearance of that is all it's cracked up to be is Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico. This one was, I think it was shortlisted, but it was at least longlisted for the International Booker Prize recently. It is only a thin little guy, and it is, a story about a couple who have really given all their energy into building a really beautiful looking life. I think that they've chased what they feel like their life should look like. They're, a couple of designers, graphic designers, I think. They live in Berlin, this like cool hip city, and they've got a cool apartment with nice indoor plants and, mid-century furniture and all the stuff. And it's just not fulfilling. They're not finding that they're actually fulfilled, and so they move and they try to chase life elsewhere. And again, it is a musing and a reckoning with this idea of the perfect modern city life and what that means and whether or not that is fulfilling. And while I absolutely agree that having to leave your dream apartment in the city sounds like actually devastating, and I would be so upset if that happened to me as well. Maybe these books will help you think about it in a different way and be like, actually, this isn't the worst thing in the world, and my life can still be nice, and this is a huge inconvenience and really devastating, but hey, there's more to life. The next person wants a book for someone who's struggling to keep up with adult life, doesn't know what career they want. Now, the first book that came to mind immediately as soon as I read this was My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Because honestly, like, I've been there. I'm there quite often where you're like, holy shit, I'm sorry. First of all, I'm getting older, and what the fuck am I doing with my life? How am I making a living right now? And you look around you and it looks like everybody else is incredibly successful and knows what they're doing, and you're like, am I like dumb and stupid and a failure? Like, am I just not equipped for adult life at all? Why do I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing when it looks like everybody else is? This is too much. This is too much for me to process. I just want to crawl up into a ball and go to bed and never get out. Right? I feel like when you're in the throes of overwhelm, when it comes to just sort of being an adult and navigating career and all of that and not knowing or feeling like you're doing what you want to do, you just want to crawl in a ball and sleep. That is what our protagonist in this book does. She takes a bunch of fucking pills and knocks herself out for a year because she just doesn't want to deal with life. So this is the first one that came to mind. And then I thought, okay, well, we also need to be helpful. Okay, we can crawl up into a ball and ignore all of our problems and seek comfort. But then we need to crawl out of that hole, okay? And so the next book that I thought of is actually a nonfiction, but it's not self-help. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to like pull up your bootstraps and be a girl boss. Trivial Grievances by Bridie Jabor. This is a collection of essays, I suppose, where she muses on the trivial grievances that people entering their 30s and thereabouts kind of age start to grapple with and start to sort of stress about. And the general, first of all, super relatable and like comforting in the sense that you're reading and you're like, oh, I'm not the only person that feels this, which is lovely and comforting. But then also my kind of general takeaway from this was like, okay, it's not that deep. Like, get over it in like the nicest way. Like, it was sort of like, girl, it's all right. Chill out. It's not that deep. Yeah? We all have these thoughts and feelings and we all just push through. Okay? It's going to be all right. This is what life is like and it's all good. We're all going through this together. So really enjoyed this. I will say the last like few essays sort of start to stray from the initial kind of point of the book. But yeah, to begin with, really good, really relatable. My favorite, I read this like quite a few years ago now, but I remember circling a particular essay because it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's me, that's relatable. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Travel will not make you a better person. I remember being like, from the ages of like teenagehood to 25, maybe really quite recently, and thinking like, yeah, maybe if I could just like get out of my hometown, if I could just like see the world, you know, like experience what it's like to live in a different city, then like all my problems, all this stupid stuff that I stress about, like it'll all go away. No. The one quote that I live by, that I always think about, that I should probably get tattooed on me, except I don't need to because it's tattooed on my fucking brain because I think about it all the time. Wherever you go, there you are. Wherever you go, there you are. Okay, someone wants books that have the same vibe as Fleabag, and this is a very difficult criteria to contend with, but I have done my best. I'm a big Fleabag fan. I am a big Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Yes, clearly a huge fan. I've picked 3 that tonally feel similar. And they are Greta and Valden by Rebecca K. Riley. This one, because it is funny, it is comedic, and there is a chaotic, semi-dysfunctional family happening here. There are siblings who are contending with the trivial grievances of life. Those things feel very Fleabag to me. Next, Big Swiss. Something about the humor of this just feels quite Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and I can see this is being adapted. Jodie Comer is a producer and is in the role of the lead, Big Swiss, and I can see Phoebe Waller-Bridge directing this. I can see that being a really great fit. I can't explain exactly why, but I just feel like it has her sense of humor, her sense of absurdity, the sort of chaotic relationship that she likes to write about. Something about Big Swiss just feels very Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So I think if you like Fleabag, you will like this. And finally, and this maybe feels like a reach, but I don't know, it makes sense to me. So let me know if you have read this book. Does it make sense to you? The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. I feel like if we lean more into the sort of like earnest, heartwarming elements of Fleabag, then this is kind of up there, right? Like the relationships, and not just the romantic relationships, but the platonic love and familial love that Fleabag subtly but beautifully portrays. I think that the Rachel Incident really captures those things as well. I don't know, there's a link there. There's something there. The next request is for literary folklore horror vibes. Now, I had to Google this to make sure I was going down the right track with these recommendations. And I was, because Wikipedia defines folk horror as a subgenre of horror that uses elements of folklore to invoke fear and foreboding. Typical elements include a rural setting, isolation, themes of superstition, folk religion, paganism, sacrifice, and the dark aspects of nature. Although related to supernatural horror, folk horror usually focuses on the beliefs and actions of people rather than the supernatural, and often deals with naive outsiders coming up against these. So, with that being said, the first book that came to mind before I checked in with the definition to make sure it worked is Agostina Basterica's new book, The Unworthy. This deals with belief systems, dark aspects of nature, religion and superstition, right? Rural setting, isolation. I mean, we're ticking a lot of boxes here. It is humans inflicting pain on each other because of their beliefs and superstitions. It's dark and disturbing. There's body horror. I think this will fit your criteria very well. Hey, have you hit subscribe? Follow? What about that little bell that lets you know when I post something? If you haven't, you might be missing my bonus episodes. Hitting those buttons is the best way to show your support for Slikey Book Club. The second best is to just be here. So thank you. Let's get back to it. Books with the same energy as The Safekeep, The Paper Palace, and Hello Beautiful. Bonnie, wouldn't I like to know? I actually haven't read Hello Beautiful, but you lumping it in with those other 2 books makes me feel like I absolutely should. But yeah, we both know damn well that finding a book with similar vibes to The Safekeep is a struggle. But lumping it together with The Paper Palace, I have thought of 2 books. One being my ultimate go-to recommendation that I will bring up at every possible opportunity, and that is Thirst for Salt by Madeline Lucas. The Paper Palace has a very strong sense of place. I feel like the setting in that book is a character in itself, in the same way that it is in Thirst for Salt. So that's one similarity there. I also feel like both of those books have very strong feelings of longing, and sort of almost like a nostalgic type of moody, dark kind of melancholy vibe as well that I feel is also present in Thirst for Salt. So happy to lump this one in with those two stories. And then also another book that I had forgotten about and never recommend, but feels relevant here in a way. It's Bodies of Light by Jennifer Down. Now, because I read this so many years ago, I don't entirely remember it, but it does feel tonally like it would work for fans of at least The Paper Palace and The Safe Keep. I don't know about Hello Beautiful. I haven't read it. It's dark. It's quiet. It is an exploration of trauma in a way. Not even in a way, like pretty overtly an exploration of trauma and how relationships form around trauma. And I think that those are definitely strong themes in both The Paper Palace and The Safe Keep. So this one, if you're a fan of those two books, could also work for you. It's a big chunky guy, but it's won a lot of awards, as you can see. And it did feel like an objectively 5-star book. Like it felt like a very quality read. But this one, I want answers to as well. So this is a call out now to you, watcher, listener. What books have you read that you think are similar to The Paper Palace, The Safe Keep, and Hello Beautiful? Books like Perfume and Pain. Very different vibe here, but I am excited to share my recs for this one. First of all, Anna Dawn has 2 other books published, Exalted and The Really Dead Wives of New Jersey, which she published under the name of the protagonist from Perfume and Pain. So I imagine Anna Dawn's other books have a similar vibe to Perfume and Pain. So check those out. I actually haven't read either of them, but they're on my list because I love Anna Dawn. But I will also recommend first a book I did not like, but that I can confidently say has very similar vibes to Perfume and Pain. It is Lesbiana, toxic ones at that, chaotic ones at that, but where Perfume and Pain sort of pushed my limits of tolerance, Diket went far beyond them. I couldn't stand the characters in this book, but it is very similar to Perfume and Pain, and thinking back on it, yeah, it was still quite funny. The protagonist just sucked. Oh my god. But yeah, I think from memory, it's 2 queer couples or 3 queer couples who are like staying in a house together for a weekend, and there's like fucking drama and they're all a bit insufferable and chaos ensues. So Diket, if you liked Perfume and Pain, but also Old Enough by Haley Jacobson, more contemporary queers, less insufferable and cringe. It's still got a little bit of cringe, but like in a different way. It's less millennial, it's more Gen Z, and it also has a little bit darker themes in it as well, that are dealt with a bit more kind of poise, I suppose, than Perfume and Pain. But it still has the humor, it still has the queerness, it's still uber contemporary. And then, if I may, a nonfiction rec, Girls Can Kiss Now by Jill Gutowitz, a collection of essays on lesbianism and pop culture. I haven't had a chance to recommend this in a long time, and I'm going to jump at the opportunity because I adored this when I read it. The title sort of pertains to the fact that girls can now kiss in media. Like, it's okay for there to be girl kissing in media now. Whereas when Jill was coming of age, it was a bit more taboo. And so she sort of explores lesbianism through hyper pop culture. There's like Taylor Swift references in there. She talks about like the L word, obviously, and just like all this stuff. And it's like, I don't know, it's just such a good essay collection. And I wish that I had the opportunity to recommend it more and could get more of you guys to read it, because it is really, really good. And they're just essay, like it's just a short collection of essays, you know, like it's really easy to pick up and put down and get a lot of enjoyment out of. All right, sad, sapphic, sexy, with a hint of normal people vibes. First of all, stunning criteria. Like, yeah, I wowould probably walk into a bookstore and ask the booksellers, hey, have you got anything sad, sapphic, and sexy with like a hint of normal people vibes? Because I would read any book that fits that criteria. What I can pick out for you is Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. I personally didn't actually love this book, but I know a lot of people who really, really did. So I'm still going to recommend it. It's about two young girls in Ireland in the 90s who are, I suppose navigating their interior queerness versus the pressures on them to live traditional lifestyles. So it has that sad vibe, has that sapphic entire fucking narrative. There's some sexy in there, and there's the push-pull will they won't they of normal people. So tick. Okay, sad, sapphic, sexy with a touch of normal people for sure. I'm once again recommending Cherry Beach. I feel like it's due time. It's been a couple months since I last mentioned this book on my channel, and if I don't mention this, then something's seriously wrong. Check up on me. This is a story about two gal pals from Melbourne who move to Toronto, and they have very different experiences when they get there. There is lust and longing and everything else you're looking for in this particular criteria. Just believe me when I say it fits, and this story is beautiful and you will love it. And finally, A Language of Limbs by Dylan Hardcastle. This is sapphic, push-pull, almost right person, wrong time, kind of crossing paths, set in 90s Melbourne, the first Mardi Gras. Also during the AIDS pandemic, of course. So it's got your sadness, it's got your queerness. There are hints of sexy, but it's a really important story and it's really beautifully written. So I think everybody should read this. Okay. Character wants to be perfect at something and they end up spiraling. I love how specific this is, and I definitely struggled, but I still have some ideas. The first thing that came to mind is actually a book that I haven't read, but I remember the synopsis and it sounds exactly like this, and it's Paradise Logic, which has either just come out or is about to come out this month. And it's about a girl who decides that she wants to become the perfect girlfriend, the best girlfriend in the world. And I assume she probably starts to spiral in her endeavor of that. So that probably sounds right up that path. I also picked out The New Me by Hallie Butler. This is about a woman who is a sort of perpetual temp worker in sort of mundane corporate roles, and she's convinced that if she just gets a permanent position, then she will live her dream life. So I think it's sort of along the lines of wanting to be perfect at something. It's like if she's perfect at her temp job, then she will get a permanent position, and then her life will be the life she wants. Like then she can be the person she's always dreamed of being, kind of thing. And it's like her endless, agonizing pursuit of that. And then another one that came to mind, another nonfiction. So it's not exactly a story of somebody trying to be perfect at something and therefore spiraling. But in a way, it does feel like that. It is The Most Important Job in the World by Gina Rushton. Now, this book coming into existence feels as though Gina spent so long reckoning with whether or not she could or should or would be a good mother that she spiraled and wrote this book. And it is a fab read because she really dissects every sort of element of motherhood and having a child and bringing a child into this world and what it means and the pros and cons and all of that kind of thing. It's just a reckoning of modern parenthood, motherhood. And yeah, in a way, it feels as though she was thinking about being the perfect mother, whether or not she could achieve that, and started spiraling, and the spiraling is this book. So there's that. Pining, sapphic, historical-ish, 90s plus earlier, fic, like sunburn, love me some queer yearning. Me too, girl. Love me some queer yearning every damn day. And so what I'm going to do is just circle back to a book that was previously mentioned. Now, this very specific request does make me think that you have potentially already read this because you've described this book to a T, but just in case, The Safe Keep. Yeah, pining, sapphic, historical-ish, earlier than the 90s. This is 60s, 70s, late 60s, early 70s, mapes. Like this is your book. This is your book. But if you have already read The Safe Keep, then I will also direct you back to A Language of Limbs, right? This spans the 70s to the 90s. Sapphic yearning, yes. Coming of age, not like super focused on the romance element, but it's still there. The pining and yearning is still there. And then I will also point out a book that I don't see many people speaking on, but is absolutely historical, sapphic, pining. And all she can bloody do is pine because she's a ghost. It's Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell Stevens. This is about a young girl, who has haunted this big sort of estate mansion forever. Right? And then this family comes to stay and this ghost girl becomes absolutely enamored, obsessed, in love with the woman of the family. But she's a ghost, right? So she can't actually pursue anything. So the entire story is just her pining and yearning and longing. So, Briefly a Delicious Life. When is this set? Oh, well, 1838, so I'd say that hits the historical fiction. And finally, guys, the last one, perfect summer beach, day drinking vibes, but literary and sad. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Summer day drinking vibes, but also sad. You challenge me, but I will rise up and I will still offer you 3 books that I think perfectly meet your criteria. First being The Wedding People. This one is summer on the beach vibes, light read, but it also is literary and sad because the premise is, trigger warning, related to suicide, right? So I feel like there are a lot of people that this book did not work for because it does teeter that line between a beach read rom-com and a sad literary character study. And I feel like your particular request here is exactly what this book is. So absolutely The Wedding People. Also, Evenings and Weekends, right? This is set on a hot summer day in London. Our characters are all gearing up to go to a party that night. So we've got the day drinking summer beach vibes, but it's very literary because it is essentially just a character study with no plot. And it's sad because each character's kind of going through a little something that they're like struggling to tell their nearest and dearest about. And then finally, Hot Milk by Deborah Levy. Now, this is, again, beach, getaway, hot, sexy, steamy, less sad than melancholy and dreamlike. Very literary, feels like a beach holiday, but absurd sort of fever dream vibes. So it's got that depth and that darkness as well to balance. And there we go. Guys, first of all, once again, thank you so much to everybody who sent in their weirdly specific requests because I had so much fun doing this, putting these recommendations together. I feel like it made me think about these books in such a different way. It made me sort of remember books that I don't think about much. Like I pulled out books that I rarely ever recommend. And I was just reminded of the themes from certain books that I'd forgotten about. It was a very fun activity for me, and I hope that it was an enjoyable watch for you. And if you were one of the people that sent in the request, I hope that you take the recommendation and like the books. And guys, I'm going to post all of my recs with their corresponding requests on the Slaggy Book Club Instagram. So make sure you go and follow me over there, and then you can check in and see the comprehensive list right before your very eyes, all in one beautiful looking grid. And I want to hear you guys's interpretations of these prompts as well. Like, as you were watching and reading the specific criterias, like which books came to mind for you? Because, I'm just finding this so endlessly fascinating. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.